everyone. Good afternoon. Hope everybody is having a great day. Happy Friday to you. So, today, what I'm going to talk about is part four. It's a installment of a five-part series on humanity, the one and ones, and beyond. Today, I'm going to be talking about expression and storytelling and how we bridge the gap between human connection and the divide that we're currently experiencing here in the United States and globally, to be honest with you. The reason why I decided to do this series is because of really what's going on in the world and really where we've come. You know, we've come so far, yet it feels like we have so much more to go. You know, a lot of efforts have been made in order for people to move forward, and for us to be less divided. Although in small parts, and not in the totality of things. But, there's different sides, different thoughts, different feelings, different people. And we have the control of the self to be able to decide what it is that we're going to make as a decision, what kind of choices we're going to have, and can we live with the decision and choices that we make. Okay. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. I actually, this time, made a presentation, so I want to go through it with you all, and we're going to go from there. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen real quick. Let's see. I'm just going to. They give you like a small little chance here. Also share testimony. Okay. All right. Let's see. I'm gonna go. All right. All right. Here we go. So I hope that you guys. I hope you guys can see what I'm saying. Um, and I actually might pop out of the actually don't see that you see what I'm seeing. So I'm gonna try to share it the way I want to share it. Oh boy. Okay. All right. Maybe it's not gonna work out the way I wanted it to work out. Just really wanted to make it really simple. Okay. I guess it's just not gonna go the way that I wanted it to go here. All right. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up my presentation, and let me see if I can. Forgive me, everybody, for trying to figure this out as we go. But I really wanted to make this work. Let's see if I can. Let's see if I can split screen here. Okay. You know what? Let's see. Bear with me as I pull this up here, and hopefully it'll work this way. Hopefully it will work this way. All right. I'm gonna try this one more time to try and share this script. Doesn't work, then we're gonna do this. Right. Okay, you know what? It looks like I got it, so I'm gonna pull it up and talk to you guys. All right. So, welcome to humanity. This is part four, expression and storytelling by myself, the motivator. Okay. My objectives for this presentation is during this presentation, I will address the following. Okay. And I don't like to read from my slides, but I'm going to read it for the purpose of this. Okay. So, what I'm going to address is the correlation between empathy, compassion, and human connection, identify three effective approaches to communication, and explain the rationale for storytelling, its relationship with bonding, and our lifestyle. Okay. Moving forward. So, where do we begin? Where we begin is with where we are in this world right now. There's a lot of things that are going on in the world. We see it, people losing their lives, unfortunately, just for helping others, people being targeted for their color of their skin or their race or their culture. Um, things that have been going on for a long time, but this level of depravity, this level of violence, this openness of things that are going on, it's affecting everybody, you know? And, it's very unfortunate that we find ourselves in this place where we just want to hurt each other, and not everybody, because I'm very thankful for the followers that I have and the people that I intentionally put myself around. I know that the videos are there and I could choose to watch it. I'm not going to close my mind to it, but I could choose how much I watch the videos of the bad that's going on in the world. Do I consume myself all day with it? Or do I watch it to see what's going on, maybe write something about it, and then come back to put myself in a better mindset, right? We're not closing ourselves to what's going on in the world, but we're also intentionally putting ourselves in a place where we need to be in a healthy mindset. We need to be in a healthy place so that we can move forward, you know? Right? It's very, very important for us to be able to move forward as individuals and then to also emulate, have other show behavior so that others emulate that in their day to day. And how can we do that? It's going to start with the three effective communication techniques. Now there's more than three. There's five, seven, there's 10, even 12 different kind of communication techniques that you can use because there's a variety of styles of how people communicate. But these are the three that stood out to me, and I'll touch upon them a little bit. Okay. Then we'll jump into some of the other stuff. So, first up is managing your tone and stress to ensure that your message is understood and positively received. Now, if you're speaking angrily and you're showing your stress and you're tense, right? You're getting your message across is probably not going to be really good. And it's definitely not going to be positively received because you're speaking out of anger, you're speaking out of emotion. Not that we don't want you to speak out of the way that you feel, but there's a diplomatic way to do it, right? There's a calmness that you need to have in order to deliver that message so that people can understand it. Because if you're talking fast and nobody can understand what you're saying, right? You see how I'm talking fast? I need to catch myself. So talk in a low tone, talk in a calm tone, talk in one that is consistent so that, you know, you're not just talking a mile a minute because of how you feel. Okay. And do your best in the moment to control your stress level. Right. It's very, very important that when you're talking, that your level of stress, despite the stressful situation you may be in, you want to keep it mid-level. You want to keep it balanced. Okay. Number two is being clear, use simple verbiage, and be aware of nonverbal cues. Okay. And what I mean by nonverbal cues is behavior. Okay. Some people, when they have their shoulders raised or they have their arms crossed, they're closed, they're tense. So you want to be aware and you want to kind of exude this sense of confidence, right? You want to stand tall, chest out, arms relaxed, relax facial expression, and you want to be clear and use simple verbiage, right? Because the last thing you want to do is be sitting up on a podium, unless you're in front of a whole bunch of researchers, right? You have to remember the space that you're in, right? Unless you're around a whole bunch of researchers, you're not going to use uh, clinical jargon or things that are complex for people to understand. When you're trying to get your message across, be very clear, be very simple, okay? And use the basic words so that people understand. All right. Not everybody is at the level that you're at. So you have to be aware of that in order to serve that population or those people that you're talking to. When I go up and I talk in front of an audience, or I give you for a story, for example, right? And a few months ago, I went to my daughter's classroom and I had to teach art, right? I was asked to come in and do an art lesson. And so I had to pick a image that was appropriate, first of all. And then I had to think about, well, how do I talk to my 5-year old on a normal basis, right? I have to kind of dumb it down so that they can understand what I'm trying to do and give them direction that they would understand and use language that they would comprehend in order to do what I needed to do as far as teaching them art and running this lesson. So I did a live painting and I utilized a display board where I drew on and gave directions and they painted. And at the end of the day, they got to bring home this nice canvas and they could say it was yours. And that was my whole purpose of doing it. Not only teaching what I love, but also being able to give them that gift of something that they'll cherish hopefully forever, you know? The third on here, as far as effective communication technique, is emotional regulation, active listening, and practicing empathy. We know when situations are tough, we know when situations are complex and highly stressed. It's so easy to get into that stressful event. Um, Coming from a person working in mental health for over 14 years, you know, my very first job I went into, I was shown this video. I worked for the state hospital, and I was shown this video of a patient in a psychotic episode. And I remember watching it and processing it, and I'm like, what did I get myself into? Really, what did I do? Um, but I knew that I wanted to help people. And I knew that in order to help people, there were certain things that I had to do in changing my aura, changing my tone, changing how I approach people because these were very sick people. So I couldn't be like all strong and, get offensive at the things that they say, or even if they're threatening violence at me, calling me names. I couldn't react to that. So regulating your emotions in that moment is very important. Actively listening. If you're talking, and the other person's talking, how are you listening? Nobody's hearing anybody, and you're just more than likely going to get into an argument. Out of all my skills that I've learned in counseling, active listening has been the most prevalent and most effective, you know, because while other people are talking, I'm able to focus on what that person is saying and just hone in on what it is that I need to do to get them to a place where they can calm down, stop being threatening, and get them to a place where they understand. So when we are communicating with people in the community who are high strung, we need to show empathy. Okay, we need to practice empathy, practice compassionate care. Okay, be nurturing because you don't know what that person was going through before they were in their stressful situation. You know, so very very important. Okay, now we're gonna move on to storytelling, right? And it's super important. I love this visual here. It just makes me happy. So if you don't like motion too much, I say don't look at the guy jumping up and down. But what I really want to get into is human connections, right? And the whole purpose of doing this humanity series again is to really get people in tune with the fact that there is greater good going on in the world than there is bad. Media outlets, news outlets, evil entities, we know they exist. We're not gonna, not accept the fact that we know that they don't exist. We're not gonna put that there. We know they exist. We know that they operate. We know that there's bad things going on in the world. But as a greater whole, I believe wholeheartedly that there's a lot of good going on. A lot of good that we don't see. A lot of positive we don't see. And it's super duper important to know in the back of your mind, hey, there's some positive good stuff that's going on and I want to be a part of that, you know because rightfully so, you can choose to subscribe to my channel or you can choose to subscribe to somebody else's channel, and my channel might be super positive and inspiring and motivational, but there's something that you like about that other person even though they're talking about blasphemy and devilish behaviors and harping on the same thing that media is harping on, but for whatever reason you connect to that. So people make choices on what it is that they want to connect with based upon the season and the emotions that they're in at the moment. You know, if I'm angry at the world and vengeful, well, I'm probably going to go watch all the stuff that's going on in the news and maybe get with one of those organizations and say, yeah, we're going to go and, do some bad things, Or you might be like, you know what? I really want to put myself in a good place. Like I've really been through a lot. I got to connect with this positive guy here and this positive organization because I really need to change my mindset. You see, everything is a mindset. what you read, what you hear, a song that you listen to, a conversation that you have with somebody, that is human connection. We're connecting the dots, humans to humans. Imagine this, and close your eyes for this actually, and imagine a visual map in front of you, okay? And there are a variety of pinpointed, what do they call those things? Can't think about it. Let's just say pin posts. Imagine a whole bunch of pin posts all over the corkboard, okay? And you start attaching strings in between the pinpoints all over, right? You're going all over, you're connecting from one side to the other, in between, up and down. Do you want to have more human connection with bad, poisonous, and toxic people? Or would you prefer to have human connection with more positive, healthy, inspiring people? Now, I want you to open your eyes and you can share it in the chat if you want what that's like because, you never know who needs to hear something. Who needs to hear something that they didn't expect. It could be a simple word or a simple sentence. It could be an emoji, you know. Um I'll share a story real quick without going into too much detail. But um the just actually this morning I was talking with somebody and I counsel students in my telehealth job. I counsel them domestically and internationally and abroad. And I was talking with a particular student who was contemplating ending their life, you know. And whenever I hear anything like that, alarms don't necessarily go off, but I know that in my mind, I'm now switching into a different place in my mind as to where I need to go with that person. But I'm listening because I know that they need to talk. And I allow this person to talk. In between, I guide the conversation, ask some questions to dig a little bit, but let them go, right? I sit there quietly, sit there quiet with intent to listen because there are very important things that will come about in the call that the person's telling me that I'm going to need to reframe and summarize and understand that, make sure that I'm understanding the person where they're coming from. Because in that point in time, when somebody's contemplating ending their life, they're in a very critical, very sensitive, very vulnerable place. And I'm the person they connected to. So I listen intently and pull different things from that person. And by the end of the conversation, it was just amazing and breathtaking to know that a person came onto the call, uh, nearly wanting to break down in tears, feeling like that they're end of the rope. And I was able, because I was patient and I listened. Granted, I have certain skills, right? Being in the counseling world, but on a human level, treating them like a human, not treating them like a patient, not treating them like a client, treating them like a human, seeing them for who they are and saying, hey, you know what? Don't be sorry about your emotions. You're real. You're authentic. This is how you feel, you know? And so I work with this person to figure out how their past experiences and the strengths that they have can be translated to this present and help them get out of that mindset so that they can have a plan going forward. And luckily, this person, I had a lot of bravery, had a lot of courage, and we're able to set up a game plan. And by the end of the call, I was able to help this person find purpose and find their why. And they were able to smile at the end of the call, you know? And for me, that's a win, especially when a student tells you like you're heaven sent and I appreciate you and all that other stuff. That goes a long, long way. So that's a that's a small piece of the puzzle, right? But it has a huge impact. And when we're meeting people in their critical time, we have a certain purpose and role and responsibility, you know? We could write off somebody because they're in a bad place and say, you know what, let them go. They're like a homeless person, for example, right? Ah, they're homeless all the time. All they do, they look dirty. They like why did they end up in this situation? I'm not even gonna spend the time to even talk to them because they're just dirty and unclean and they're, here trying to collect, coins in a cup. Every day I see them. It's disgusting. Like why can't they just change their situation? You know? Imagine that, right? Like all the assumptions that we come up with people, and we do that for people. We're human. We come up with assumptions. We come up with stories that make sense in our minds. But you never really truly know what a person's going through unless you spend that time. So what I'm trying to get at here is this connection, right? How can we move with intent? How can we be more purposeful? How can we be more compassionate? How can we show more empathy? And it starts with you. This is my call to action. As in most of my posts, I have a call to action, but here to you guys, whoever's on this call here, can't see because I got my full screen share. When I hop off, I'll see it in the comments. My call to action is for you to be more purposeful and more intent. Put yourself in a positive mindset and think about when you have yourself in that mindset, who are you going to serve? And how are you going to serve them? Is it people at your job? Is it people in the street that you come into contact with? Is it that person at the corner that you see every day when you walk to the train to take the train to go where you need to go? Are you going to stop and say hi? Maybe smile at them, give them a wave, do something different than you do on a normal basis. Because the routine, when you keep a routine, it's good, but it's not good when we're ignoring things around us that we could change, you know? So I really call out to you and challenge you all to be more positive, be more healthy, focus less on what's going on in the media and the news. Know about what's going on, but focus less on it and put more attention to what you need to do to get yourself in a good place. Because as long as you are in a good place and you're in good health and you're in a good mindset, you can then take that and make it contagious. you know I smile about it because my whole purpose of my posts and what I want for my page is to make it contagious. I want it to be the most positive thing that I am planting to you and giving to you so that you can share it and give it to others. You know, the there's a saying and it slipped out of my head, but you know, when you are when you're working, you know, do you want to be solo by yourself as a planter, or do you want to be a producer? Something along the lines of that. And the reason it's good to just rather than be a solo planter, when you're choosing to be a producer, you're actually in the process of producing that plant that you're growing. Whereas in being a planter, you've received the plant and you're just planting it in the ground. But as a producer, you're taking the seed or seeds, you're planting it in the ground, you're watering the soil, ensuring that the soil is nurturing, you're ensuring that it's getting enough air and healthy oxygen and sunlight, and you're watching it grow. You're talking to the plant, you're doing all these things to be part of producing. And it starts with one, right? And then it blossoms and it flourishes and you continue to take care of it, right? And then you plant more seeds around so that you have produced this garden full of beauty, right? Not to say that the planter doesn't have an important role, but the producer realizes the value more and has a better appreciation for it. So in getting towards the end of the presentation here, two big questions. All right. Can humans be saved? And where do we go from here? I wholeheartedly believe humans can be saved. You know? I really truly believe that. What do you guys think? Put in the chat. Let me know, can humans be saved and where do we go from here? Because we're going to have to come together to rise up, to resist, but to also move with grace, you know? I I went to watch the movie David a few weeks ago also, and there was really some great lessons in there. I don't know if anybody's watched it. If you've watched the movie, put a yes in the chat. I'd really like to know. But throughout the movie, David was chosen to be the next king, and he couldn't tell anybody. Prophet came and told him, "Don't tell anybody." And he really didn't want to be in that position because he was small, he was young, and he's like, "How can I, as a kid, be chosen to be the next king? You know, why me? You know?" And he questioned and questioned and questioned, and um, he was the king in place currently was King Saul, and King Saul was ruling his community, and everything was working well as people were for him, and as David found himself in more different experiences, um, he ended up realizing that God, chose him for a reason. He ended up having more and more realizations through his reflections, through his interactions with others. He had no fear, you know. These adults that were operating in these communities, they had fear, but this kid did not. And so it came down for a big battle, This is why you hear David and Goliath, right? King Saul went back with his men and they talked amongst each other about who's going to fight Goliath. And nobody wanted to fight Goliath because Goliath was so big. And you had these big, bolstery men walking around and, with weapons, but they were so scared to fight this giant. David comes along and says, "I'm going to go fight Goliath," you know? And it's amazing because they had this moment in the water where he was looking for a rock because he knew that he couldn't fight him physically, but he knew he had to defeat him somehow. So he went to reach for a small rock, but there was a butterfly uh, flying around, and the butterfly, which was a message from God, planted itself on a bigger rock in front. So David recognized that and he put the small rock down, picked up the bigger rock, and put it in his sling bag and walked up to face Goliath. And now Goliath's like, "I'm not fighting you. I'm not fighting a child, you know? And he pretty much doesn't back down, and Goliath goes and talks to his superior, and the superior is like, you have to go fight, you know? And he goes, "I'm gonna make this easy. This is gonna be so easy," and he's just walking, boom, 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 goes up to David and starts to rush him. David goes into his bag, takes his sling around, and goes, whoosh, and the rock goes right to Goliath's head and crushes him, kills him right there. People are shocked. They were laughing at David at first before all this because they're like, how can a kid defeat a giant? But it was because they believed. Right? We have to have a certain belief. And you know what? If you don't believe in God, that's fine. I'm not telling you this story so that you could believe in him. But what I am saying is that we have to believe in something. There has to be some reason for us to believe. I personally believe in my creator, and I think people need to find more Jesus, more God in their life, so that they can change the way they're thinking, the way they see things. But to each their own, right? But we can be saved if we want to be saved. And we can be changing agents in the world if we want to take on that role, you know? There are things that we can do to be better, you know? The choices and decisions we make cannot be impulsive, cannot be reactive, you know? Might have some slip ups through the day. It happens, we're human. But, reacting and being impulsive, it leads to a lot of bad things. A lot of decisions we wish we can take back, a lot of regrets. So where do we go from here? How do we move forward? How do we be better humans in society? Are we going to be part of the divide? They have this great visual. I wish I put it in this slide. They have a great visual. I want you to close your eyes for this one too before we wrap it up. On the right hand side, there's you walking amongst, let's say, 100 people. You walking amongst a crowd. On the left hand side, there's you walking by yourself. Now, I'm not saying go and be alone and be isolated and just live that solo life. But what I am saying is, if you are going to follow a crowd, you better be damn sure that you're following a good, healthy crowd. You know, sometimes you have to walk that path by yourself. You know, you have to walk that path by yourself because you have to separate yourself from the toxic poison that's going on in the world. You have to separate yourself from the bad, recognizing, is my friend good for me or they're not good for me? Is this relationship, is my boyfriend and girlfriend healthy for me or not healthy for me in the long run? You know, am I just sitting in my marriage unhappy for the sake of it? Where does your happiness come into play? Why is your happiness important? What purpose do you serve? Why are you here? So we need to dig deep. We need to reflect and we need to do better. As a whole, we have to do better. Choosing when to engage and when to disengage. Because, sometimes being the bigger person is walking the situation, especially if you know that the outcome is not going to be good. Why put yourself in a situation where you're taking that risk? Not all risks are worth it. So you see here in this picture, all different people from different races, different backgrounds, different creeds, different identities, different cultures, right? We have to come together as a whole. We have to love ourselves, love one another, treat everybody with respect, you know? So, as we move on and we go forward, I want to thank you all for sticking with me, staying here. This is me visiting an abandoned castle in upstate New York, and it was a great, great time. I had a great experience. And I figured, what a great picture to choose as you guys walk on this path with me. It's a good, good memory. This last slide here, if you're not already following me, please follow me. I worked very hard to put the content that I put out on. Just recently got a I can't say the word. I recently got approved for content monetization with Facebook. So I'm very excited about that. And I'm part of the YouTube partnership program with this account. And I have a second YouTube channel, Art by Mar 87. If you're not following it, please follow it. It's my new art channel that I dedicated strictly to artwork. So this is where you can find me: Instagram, my blog, and my YouTube. I appreciate you guys for sticking and staying with me here. I'm going to try to come back to my to my thing that's going on. All right, let me close this out. So yeah, as we wrap things up here, I appreciate you all supporting me. Appreciate the continued support that you guys do for me. I put out this content for myself, yes, but I also put it out for my audience. And I hope to continue to put out more positive, inspiring, and motivational content. As we go forward, the fifth installment and the final installment of the series will either be probably the first week of March. I plan on doing it. I like to spread it apart. And I'm going to poll on my Facebook page to see when is going to be the best time to get the most amount of people on that final talk. All right. I hope to have some live engagement and look forward to further connecting with the community. I hope everybody has a wonderful, blessed day. Take care. Peace.